It's Thomas the Tank Engine, hip 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 hooray. Chugga chugga chug chug chuff chuff chuff, he rides along the way. And when you hear that whistle, it can only be one train. Our favorite little engine, Thomas is his name. Thomas the Tank Engine's rolling along. All of his friends will be coming along. Thomas, we love you. Thomas, we love you. Thomas, we love you.
It was a foggy day on the island of Sodor. It was playing a big part of a big winter season. Many of the trains were falling behind schedule with the wood, and there even had been a few accidents as well as holdups on the main line. James had gotten derailed due to thick fog after he had completely covered a red signal. Thomas took a wrong turn and ended up at the wrong station. And Edward had been sent on the main line by mistake when the signalman couldn't see him and mistakenly thought he was Gordon. The Fat Controller was having a very rough time with all these problems, so he decided to send fewer trains into service and keep the others in the shed until the foggy weather had been cleared up. Most of the lines were very dangerous when this kind of weather came, but it was the coastal run that proved to be most worrying. Near the docks, there was a tall lighthouse that shone brightly to help ships find their way inland or to sail out into the sea. One particular night, Thomas was delivering a train of fish from the fishing village to Brenham Docks. The fog was very thick, and he had to run slowly and cautiously for danger could be lurking nearby. Just then, he heard the sound of a deep horn. It was coming from the sea in the thick horizon. That must be a ship lost out at sea, Thomas thought to himself. No need to worry, the lighthouse will help guide its way through the troublesome weather. But as Thomas rounded a curve close to where the high tide was, he heard the deep horn go off again. This time, it was closer. He looked out into the thick blanket of fog, and then to his shocking horror, a massive passenger ship emerged, its bow heading straight for the rocks, close to the lighthouse. Thomas gasped in horror and tried to whistle out to the ship, but failed. The ship got even more closer and closer to the rocks. A collision was now inevitable. Thomas closed his eyes. But when he opened them, there was nothing there. The ship had vanished into thin air. Thomas was shocked and confused. He still was that way when he arrived at the docks. Salty, the dockyard diesel, was there and saw the expression on Thomas's face.
Shiver me timbers, Thomas, mate. You look like you've seen something that's made you all puzzled.
Thomas explained to Salty what he saw. The dockyard diesel was surprised, but then he uttered those fateful words.
Hearing what you told me, matey, has reminded me of a story that occurred here a long time ago, somewhere in the winter of 1917, 2 years before World War I came to an end, according to what all the seamen and fishermen have said. And so, Salty began as he told Thomas the story. It was a bitter cold winter on the coastline of Sodor. A passenger ship, named after the island itself, was one of the biggest ships ever built, and was capable of carrying up to a total of nearly 2,000 people. She embarked on her 7th maiden voyage from Sodor through London to New York and back. She completed the first part of her journey, but with the weather conditions and rough seas from her departure from London, her captain was forced to divert back to Sodor. The wild weather soon died down, but the fog rolled in. That's when the captain made a fatal navigation error. He mistook a lighthouse for another one, and it resulted in Sodor being rammed into the rocks, which glanced along her starboard side, opening a gash of 80 feet down her hull. She was mortally wounded and she started to sink. The captain desperately tried to beach her, but that only made things worse. Sodor took on more water and she started to list on her starboard side, going down bow first. The crew got the lifeboats ready and started the evacuation. The order to abandon ship was given when the ship's forecastle submerged. 25 minutes later after the collision, Sodor was equipped with 24 lifeboats. She was carrying 917 on board. As the boats were being lowered as quickly as possible, Sodor sank deeper, the water reaching the bridge at a now fast rate. Rather than staying with the ship, the captain made a cowardly escape when he got into a lifeboat, according to eyewitnesses. Out of the 17 lifeboats, 11 of them were successfully launched. As the 12th one was about to lower, the ship rolled over and capsized, throwing everyone into the sea. The scene was a nightmare for those in the floating boats. 554 lives survived, leaving 363 to perish in the freezing water of the Gulf of Sodor. Thomas gasped in awe and shock. "What happened then?" he asked. "On the aftermath," Salty said, finishing the story, "a rescue ship came to pick up the survivors. There was no formal inquiry, but it has been recently suggested that it was mainly due to the captain not having updated charts, so that he mistook the lighthouse for another one. The captain, however, was blamed for cowardly leaving his ship and was given a 2-year suspension, which ended up costing his job. The island had never had another ship for transatlantic passenger service since the loss of Sodor, when the company itself went bankrupt in 1928. As the years passed, many witnesses reported sights of seeing a ghost ship that resembled the one that sank. In 1995, a week after the legendary RMS Titanic was discovered, the wreck of Sodor was discovered, laying upright with a list to starboard and intact 4 miles off the coast, but she had deteriorated over time. Since her discovery, many divers have gone down to explore her until 1994, when she was officially declared as a watery grave by the survivors, relatives, and families. They said that the divers were disturbing their loved one's resting place. "Oh my goodness," said Thomas as he looked down at his buffers. "Now I know what I saw. But how come none of us engines never knew about this disaster?" "Because, Mihari," Salty said, "you all were never told since it was mostly hidden away. Even the discovery was not told to you. Even when it made the front page news in the papers in 1985, you never even noticed." "Oh, I see," sighed Thomas. Days passed and the foggy weather was starting to let up. Passenger and freight traffic was slowly on the rise again, but the coastal run still posed a dangerous situation, so only Thomas, Percy, Duck, and Toby were allowed on it, while the bigger engines like Gordon, Henry, and James had to stay away from it. At the fishing village, Toby was shunting a short train of vans next to some fishing boats. The workmen were using old equipment, which made the progress of unloading the fishing boats slow, but they had all day to get the job done. The vans were to be sent to bring the docks to a much bigger ship so that the fish could be sent to the mainland. Toby wanted to be the one to take the train, but Thomas and Percy were ordered to do it.
Just then, Doug put in with some worrying news.
The weather report says there's going to be a strong gale around at 5:18 p.m., he said. It sounds bad, and the coastal line is going to take a direct hit by the time that happens. The area will be closed until the storm dies out.
Toby, Percy, and Thomas were very concerned. We'll have to try and speed things up if we can, said Percy, worrying. I won't want to be caught up in that storm. We'll do what we can, said Toby. That's all I can say. As time ticked by, the work of getting the train loaded up started. At around 3:02 p.m., the loading was completed. Thomas and Percy were to push the train to get to the dock, like by doing it together due to the heavy load. They set off at around 3:42 p.m. and headed out to the coastal run. However, the weather predictions were wrong, for the strong gale winds arrived much too early. The winds pelted the coastline of the railway, and high tides started to damage the tracks that ran along it. The lighthouse that shone brightly used once again to help prevent ships in the area to stay well clear from the shore. When Thomas and Percy reached the most dangerous part of the coastal track, they made the bravest decision ever. They were going to cross it and try to make it to the other side, despite the fierce storm. They struggled with all their might as they felt the gale winds blow against them. We've got to make it! We've got to make it! Puffed Percy. We're going to make it! We're going to make it! Puffed Thomas. The two tank engines continued the brave crossing along the wet rails. They could see the lighthouse as they rounded the bend. It was here the storm reached its most dangerous point. Then there was trouble. As Thomas and Percy finished rounding the bend, the light in the lighthouse had suddenly went out. Its fuse had blown. Bust my bumpers! Cried Thomas. The lighthouse has gone out! I saw that too! Percy shouted out. Now the ships in the area will not be able to see how far or how close they are to the island until it's too late. Then there was more trouble. As the two tank engines puffed on, the points ahead of them had been sent in the wrong direction due to the strong gale force wind, which led to an old pier. Thomas and Percy had no idea they were heading for disaster. Suddenly, there came a loud, deep tone that sounded like a ship's horn. It was so loud, it caused Thomas and Percy's drivers to apply their brakes hard on. So hard that when they screeched to a standstill, the train ahead of them would continue on until it broke through the buffers and smashed into the sea below. Bouncing buffers! Wailed Percy. What on earth was that we just heard? It sounded like some kind of ship, Thomas said. Or even a foghorn. But Thomas was wrong. When the storm started to subside, he saw what looked like a ship. A passenger ship. And it looked like the one Thomas saw days ago. Then it slipped into the darkness. Percy didn't even notice because he was too shaken up. Thomas soon remembered about the story of the sunken ship that was named after the island itself. Perhaps it was the ghost of that ship that saved me and Percy, he thought to himself. He didn't know until later on, but he was correct. The following day later, when the storm had finally passed, villagers at the fishing village held a special party for Thomas and Percy, hosted by Sir Topham Hatt. You two were very brave, he said. Even though that was a freak storm that hit our island, you made a brave effort to attempt to finish your job to get the fish delivered. We still have no idea who it was that saved us, sir, Percy said. I think I do, Thomas said, and he told everyone about the sunken ship that Salty told him about. Once he finished, everyone was mostly amazed. while others were spooked or too stunned.
Sir Topham Hatt then had an idea.
Since that shipwreck is only 4 miles away from the coastline and lies in shallow waters, enough for divers, we should place a memory plaque on it to show our respect to it and the lost souls that died and to the people who survived, he suggested.
That would be a great idea, sir, Thomas said. It will bring a peaceful closure to the families and relatives of the lost lives and survivors. A few weeks later, the wreck of Sodor was rediscovered. It made headlines around the island 24 hours later. The sunken ship was in bad shape because she had deteriorated more since she was last visited in 1994. After the memory plaque was made, it was taken to the wrecked via submarine a few days later. The Fat Controller with the remote control panel placed the plaque on the bow of the ship. He took his top hat off and gave the ship the salute with respect. Thomas and Pussy sounded their whistle was 10 times in the style of a 10-bell salute. The wreck of Sodor is now at peace. Her story can be told to younger generations of ship fans, but the telling of her saving Thomas and Percy and that stormy night on the coastal run was never told, for the 2 tank engines wanted to keep that a secret. However, when Thomas or Percy stop at the old pier that they nearly fell off from, they always give a minute of silence to pay respect to the passengers who were lost on that ship when it went down on that cold and freezing winter night in 1917. Hi, Sodor. We know you may not be around to hear us right now, but we want to say thank you for saving Thomas and I from that fateful night. We know what happened on that fateful night, but it's over now, and you're now at peace. You will no longer be disturbed. You will now rest peacefully and quietly. You are now in a better place. Thank you for saving us, Sodor. You are a credit to the railway.